Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Go check out my website at skyazrael.com if you want life coaching or mentoring. I want to talk about a topic tonight, just kind of philosophize, intellectualize on something, see if we can understand it better. May not have any real answers, maybe you guys can help provide some. But sometimes it just takes spreading something out really to see what you got, you know? I want to talk about equality. It's something that people fight for. Equality has been a big deal. It seems to be a big deal nowadays. There's waves of it. I'm not really sure why people feel like there's so much inequality now. Maybe I'm out of touch. But I want to talk about equality in the sense that it's really not a natural phenomenon. We don't see equality in nature. Equality is a theory. It's something that humans came up with, that we thought about, and we recognized maybe there was a problem, and we said, hey, wait a minute, that's not fair, and we force equality into our world. That's why we have to fight for it. And we think up ways that aren't equal, and we go and regulate and fix or, attack areas that need to be more equal, that we feel like need to be more equal. And that, I think, in itself gets to be a debate of where is this an unequal situation, or is there something else going on here? And people want to argue about that. I have a list here. A pretty decent list. It's long, so I'm just going to run through it. But it shows you some of the ideas, just basic ideas, of examples of how we find inequality out in nature. That inequality is the natural order of things, and we need to understand that. It just helps for me, I guess, to understand what we're getting into, because you think of equality as such a basic, obvious thing. Of course we need to be equal. And that feels like that would be natural. It's such a basic obviousness of fair play. But fair play has to be forced, and it has to be thought up. So, say for example, let's just run down some of this list. A small number of stars have the most mass within galaxies. A small number of rivers carry most of the world's fresh water. A small number of cities have the majority of people. A small number of earthquakes destroy the most property. A small number of oil fields have the most deposits. There's a small number of forests that create the most air. Like the Amazon creates most of the air. It's just one forest. A small number of classical composers are responsible for most of the classical music repertoire. And you could say that with any music genre. Go turn on the classic rock station in your town, and there's going to be the same 6 or 7 bands that they play in rotation year in and year out. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of other bands that could be played. A small number of scientists publish most of the scientific papers. Those scientific papers are responsible for the discoveries and the theories and the inventions that we have all around us, and a small number of people are responsible for that. A small number of authors dominate the bestseller list. Geez, you could name them on one hand. And they're selling all the books, and I write books, and it's hard to get a deal, but not for Stephen King. A small number of people in every industry, think of any industry, a small number of people in any industry are responsible for most of the work. And you can think of a lot of examples with this, I know I can, and there's a lot of businesses where a handful of people are really pulling the weight. They're the grease that makes the machine move, and everybody else is expendable. And this is why they're paid more. You may have animosity towards your boss because he's paid more. But this guy is not just responsible for himself. You're responsible for yourself. Your boss is responsible for everybody on the floor, everybody in the room. There's a small number of people who garner the income and wealth, and they always have. Look at most of the money. How much money is there in the world? There's a handful of people that have most all of it. We're all fighting over scraps. It's the same thing with property ownership. It's the same thing with construction companies. There's a handful of construction companies that get all the construction deals. There's thousands, tens of thousands of construction companies, but a handful of them get all the big deals. They build most of the stuff. Look at Tishman, that's the one that used to be in LA. I don't know if they're still there, probably are. But Tishman built pretty much everything. And there's a bunch of other companies. The one that kind of gets a lot of people on this list, I could go on and on with the list, but is a small number of men get all the pretty women. That's really frustrating for because a lot of guys want a pretty girlfriend. They want a pretty wife. We're fed beauty as something to desire. There's a natural instinct, a biological instinct towards beauty, but we're force-fed it by the media. And a lot of guys, I used to see this in LA, guys that were desperately lonely, passing up really wonderful women because they were waiting for some model. They want a model. They want a fucking actress. They want this fantasy. And they're passing up some awesome chick. Nah, I don't want to call you later. I'm going to wait on some chick that, that's the funny thing is a lot of these women that you dream over and drool over and fantasize over and possibly masturbate to don't even look like that in real life. There's actually a documentary about that, about the porn stars, which may burst some of your bubbles. You guys think some of these women are so beautiful, some of these porn chicks. It shows the makeup they go through before they go and do their little sex scene. It's a behind the scenes view into the porn industry, and it'll definitely change your view of it. We find equality in many areas. So those are areas that are naturally forming groups and systems that inequality exists. We find equality in areas that we could probably name either equal opportunity, equal rights, equal pay, equal protection under the law, equal rights of citizenship. We can figure these things, we can find equality, but each one of those areas is thought up by us, didn't happen naturally. In fact, they used to be the other way, where it was horribly unequal, and many of those areas even equal protection under the law. The way the law is written should be for everybody. It doesn't matter what race, color, class, creed, anything. Any American, the same law applies. But reality, that's the ideological view. Reality shows that all you need is a good lawyer. And a good lawyer will get you out of anything. And it gets to be confusing for some people when one person doesn't get charged the same way as someone else when they both literally did the exact same crime. equal rights. We've been fighting at it for 50, 60 years. It didn't happen naturally. It wasn't a natural thing. It's not natural to our species. And we've had to fight for it. And even in 2022, we can find areas where equal rights are being infringed upon. You think we would have figured this out already. So equality has to be thought about, intellectualized, planned. You have to have a room full of smart people and sit around and say, okay, how are we going to make this organization or this system more equal? And then it has to be implemented and continually updated for the times, continually monitored like a machine, where you have to change the oil and maintain your machine for it to keep working. This has to be done with equality. If we become complacent and you stop fighting for equality, then it goes away. Now, is that a bad thing? That's where I'll end the video for you, because I'll make a whole nother video. I have a whole nother way to talk about this. Is equality so important, so necessary? When you look at it in the sense of a small number of people, say for example, work harder on the factory floor or in the office building. They work harder. They do more. They produce more. They're there earlier. They stay later. While they're there, they're doing 10 times of what you're doing. They're smarter than you. They have a higher IQ than you. They can think on many more levels than you. Should they be paid the same? Are you equal? Maybe you've been the hardest worker, the smartest guy in the room. Do you like to be treated like the dumbest person? You don't. I know you don't. You want to be recognized. You know how much I do for this goddamn company? You get rid of me, this whole fucking thing crumbles like a house of cards. And there are employees that are like that. You can have a few solid employees that keep the whole business going. And when you get rid of that one or two motherfuckers, this place crumbles. So is equality important, and should we be so focused on regulating it? It's just an honest question. I'm not against it. I'm not posing my opinion. It's all food for thought. Thanks for watching.